Mia Hartley had always lived her life in quiet patterns. Work, home, coffee with a friend now and then, and a long list of decisions she avoided making. She was the kind of woman who carried her emotions gently, afraid of showing too much or wanting too loudly. But something had begun shifting inside her over the last few months, something quiet but persistent. A feeling she could no longer push away. It wasn't wild and it wasn't risky. It was a simple desire to grow, to understand herself better, to stop living small. Everything started on a cold Friday in Seattle. The kind of evening where the sky was a dark curtain and the city lights felt like tiny sparks fighting through the chill. Mia stepped into her apartment and let the door close behind her with a soft click. Her coat was still damp from the light rain. Her mind was heavier than usual. It wasn't work. It wasn't loneliness. It was the simple truth she had been circling for too long. She wanted something different from her life. Something fuller, more honest. She dropped her keys on the counter and stood in the middle of her living room, a warm, quiet place she usually found comforting. Tonight, it felt too quiet, too safe, too predictable. She walked to the window, looking down at the blurred lights on the street, and felt that small whisper again. What if you could handle more than you think? What if you've stopped holding yourself back? She had met 3 people recently who each brought out a part of her she had long ignored. Ethan was the calm one, a coworker who always listened closely, spoke softly, and made her feel grounded. He had a quiet confidence, the kind that didn't demand attention but naturally guided people toward him. With him, she felt safe enough to think clearly. Luca was the opposite, spontaneous, energetic, a photographer who saw beauty in every detail. She had met him at a cafe a month earlier when he accidentally bumped into her table and knocked over her tea. His apology had turned into a conversation, and that conversation turned into a friendship. Luca made her feel awake, seen, and capable of more than routine. Then there was Ava, her childhood friend. Her longest connection, the only person who had known her before she built her quiet walls. Ava had the gift of making Mia laugh, even in her darkest moments. She never judged, never rushed her, but always encouraged her to try new things, explore, breathe, live. Each of them added something different to her world. Each of them made her feel like the person she wanted to become. And on that cold Friday, that desire to grow became too strong to ignore. She sat on her couch, staring at her phone. Her heart beat faster than usual. She didn't want a dramatic moment. She didn't want chaos. She just wanted to test her emotional limits to see if she was brave enough to be honest with the people who meant something to her. Her fingers hovered over the screen. She felt ridiculous, nervous, uncertain. Then she typed the message she had been afraid to send. "If you're free tonight, come over. I want to talk." She stared at the message for a few seconds, wondering if she should delete it. But something inside her pushed her forward. She pressed send. The second she did, she froze. The sound of the message sending felt louder than the entire room. Her stomach tightened. She had no idea what she would say if they all showed up. But part of her already felt lighter, as if sending the message was the first step toward the change she had been longing for. 3 dots appeared almost immediately. Ethan replied first. "I'll be there." His message was simple, steady and familiar in its calmness. Luca's message arrived a moment later. "Say no more. On my way." She could almost hear his energetic tone. And then Ava, "Mia, are you okay? I'm coming." The room suddenly felt warmer, but her pulse quickened. She walked around the living room, adjusting pillows for no reason, fixing a photo frame that was already straight, smoothing her hair even though no mirror was nearby. She wasn't preparing for something dramatic. She was preparing for honesty, something she rarely allowed herself. Minutes felt like seconds. And soon a knock echoed through her apartment. Her breath caught. She wiped her palms on her jeans, trying to calm her nerves. When she opened the door, all 3 of them stood there. Framed by the hallway light, Ethan with his soft, reassuring expression, Luca with his bright, curious eyes, and Ava with her warm concern. For a moment, Mia felt exposed, like they could all see her fear. But then Ethan offered a small smile. Luca lifted his hand in a casual wave and Ava stepped forward to hug her gently. Their presence eased something inside her. They walked into her living room, each of them settling into a familiar place. Ethan chose the armchair by the window. Luca leaned against her bookshelf, scanning the room with his usual attention to detail. Ava curled up on the couch, watching Mia carefully. Mia stood in front of them, her hands clasped together, unsure how to begin. Ethan broke the silence first. "Talk to us," he said quietly. "We're here." She took a deep breath, feeling both vulnerable and strangely strong. "I invited you tonight," she said softly, "because there's something I need to say, and I've avoided saying it for too long." They listened closely. No judgment. No interruption. "I've spent most of my life being cautious," she continued. "Afraid of wanting too much. Afraid of saying too much. Afraid of making the wrong choice. I've kept myself small because it felt safer that way." Her voice wavered, but she didn't stop. "But lately, being with you three has made me realize something. You each show me a different part of myself. A part I miss. A part I want to understand. And tonight, I wanted to test my limits. Not in a reckless way. Just emotionally, I want to grow. I want to be honest. I want to stop running from my feelings." For a moment, the room was still. The quiet stretched, not uncomfortably, but gently, like it was giving her time to breathe. Ava leaned forward, her tone soft. "Mia, you don't have to apologize for being scared. You're allowed to feel more than one thing. You're allowed to want more." Luca nodded. "Growth takes courage. And calling us tonight, that's courage." Ethan's gaze held something deeper understanding, maybe admiration. "Whatever you're feeling," he said, "we'll help you figure it out." Mia felt her chest loosen. For the first time in years, she felt like her emotions weren't too heavy for the room. Like she wasn't too much or too complicated. She was about to continue, ready to open herself more. Ready to finally speak the truth she had been guarding for months. And suddenly the lights flickered. A soft hum came from the electrical panel, followed by a quiet pop dot. Then everything went dark. Ava let out a surprised gasp. Luca checked his phone, the screen glowing faintly. "The whole building is out," he said. Mia stood still, letting her eyes adjust to the dim shapes around her. The timing felt unreal, right when she was about to reveal the deepest part of herself. The world around her fell into darkness. For a moment, no one spoke. Then, in the quiet, someone reached for her hand. She felt warm fingers close gently around hers. She couldn't see who it was, but the touch wasn't hesitant. It wasn't confused. It held a silent message she could feel all the way in her chest. Someone in that darkened room understood her more deeply than she realized. Someone felt something too, and when the lights came back on, she knew everything between them would change. The lights flickered back on slowly, illuminating Mia's living room once more. The faint hum of the emergency lights outside their apartments mixed with the soft sounds of the city at night. Mia's heart was still racing, not because of the sudden blackout, but because the silence that had filled the room moments ago had brought her closer to the truth. She had been holding back for so long. She looked at the three faces around her, Ethan's calm, steady gaze, Luca's playful but concerned expression, and Ava's warm, searching eyes, and felt a surge of both vulnerability and courage. This was her moment. She couldn't hold back anymore. Taking a deep breath, she began, "I wanted tonight to be different. I needed tonight to be different." Her voice was soft but steady. "I invited you all here because I've been hiding from myself. I've been afraid of my own heart, afraid of wanting more, afraid of taking chances. And I realized that if I never test my limits, I'll never know what I'm capable of." Ethan leaned forward slightly, resting his hands on his knees. "Mia, whatever it is, you don't have to be scared here. We're listening." His calm presence gave her the first real wave of courage. She glanced at Luca, who had been quiet since the lights returned. His usual playful energy replaced by a seriousness that made her feel safe. You all remind me of parts of myself I've ignored for too long, she continued. Ethan, you make me feel steady and seen. Luca, you make me feel alive and capable of spontaneity. You remind me of who I was before I started doubting myself, before I started hiding behind walls. Her voice trembled, but she didn't stop. Tonight, I wanted to test my limits, to see if I'm brave enough to be honest, to let myself feel without fear, without pretending everything is fine. She paused, searching for the words that could express the storm of emotions inside her. I care about each of you, more than I've allowed myself to admit. And I don't fully understand what that means yet. Maybe it's friendship, maybe it's something more. But I need to find out, and I need to start by being honest. Ava reached out and took her hand, her touch grounding Mia in a way that felt comforting and familiar. Mia, you've always been brave, Ava said softly. You just didn't see it. Being honest about your feelings is the bravest thing anyone can do. Luca smiled gently, his eyes bright even in the dim light. Testing your limits doesn't mean doing something reckless, he said. It means growing. And what you're doing right now, opening up like this, it's growth. Real growth. Ethan stayed silent for a moment, letting their words sink in. Then he added, his voice low and steady. Mia, you're allowed to feel more than one thing at the same time. You're allowed to be complicated. You're allowed to care deeply. And you're allowed to explore what that means without fear. Mia felt her chest relax for the first time in years. She realized that this was what she had been longing for, not judgment. Not a quick answer, but presence, understanding, and the courage to embrace her emotions fully. She took a deep breath and let the warmth of the room, the presence of her friends, and the honesty of the moment fill her completely. I've been scared of being honest because I didn't want to risk losing any of you, she admitted. But staying silent has only made me feel smaller. I want to be bigger than my fears. I want to experience everything I've been holding back. And I want to start with tonight. With you. Ethan reached out and gently placed his hand on hers. The simple contact sent a jolt through her, not shocking, not alarming, but a steady, grounding feeling that made her heart beat faster. Mia, we're not going anywhere, he said. You don't have to worry about that. We're here, and we feel this too. In our own ways, we feel this too. Luca moved a little closer, leaning against the arm of the couch where Mia and Ava sat. Mia, you've made us see how much you trust us, he said. Trusting us with your heart, with your truth. It's powerful, and it deserves to be honored. Mia swallowed hard, the weight of her emotions pressing against her chest. For so long, she had been careful, protecting herself from disappointment, heartbreak, and uncertainty. But in this moment, she realized that honesty wasn't weakness. It was strength. And being vulnerable didn't make her fragile. It made her human, alive, and capable of real connection. She looked at Ava, who squeezed her hand gently. We've always known you were strong, Mia, Ava said softly. You've just needed to believe it yourself. Tonight is your chance to see that. Mia's eyes filled with tears, not from sadness, but from relief and release. I've spent years pretending that being cautious was enough, she whispered. But now I see it's not. I want to live fully. I want to feel fully. And I want to explore what that means with all of you. The room was quiet again, filled with the soft hum of the city outside, the faint buzz of the emergency lights, and the unspoken understanding between four people who had crossed the line from comfort into honesty. No one rushed, no one judged. They simply held space for her, letting her words land and her feelings breathe. Then, as if the universe were giving them another sign, the apartment lights flickered once more. This time they didn't go out, but the soft glow cast new shadows across the room, highlighting the intimacy of the moment. Mia felt a small laugh escape her lips, breaking some of the tension. It was unexpected, but it felt right. She realized that courage could also be joyful, not just heavy or painful. Someone reached for her hand again. She didn't know who, and it didn't matter. The warmth of the touch, the steady reassurance, was all she needed. It was a silent promise that she wasn't alone, that her feelings were valid, and that the path forward, uncertain as it was, wasn't one she had to walk by herself for the first time in months, maybe years. Mia allowed herself to truly breathe. She leaned back slightly, letting the emotions wash over her, letting the silence be comforting rather than suffocating. She could feel the care radiating from Ethan, the energy and understanding from Luca, and the unwavering support from Ava. She realized that emotional growth wasn't about dramatic gestures or risky adventures. It was about trust, presence, honesty, and connection. "I think I needed tonight more than I realized," Mia said finally, her voice steady. "I wanted to test my limits, to see if I could be brave enough to show all of this. And I can. Because of all of you, I can." Ava smiled softly. "And we're honored to be part of your courage, Mia. That's what friends do. That's what people who care do. We see you." Luca nodded. "And now the next step isn't just about testing limits. It's about experiencing them, living them, feeling them. Together or apart, you're not alone." Ethan's hand stayed gently over hers. "Exactly. We'll take it one step at a time. No rush, no pressure. Just honesty. That's all it's ever been." Mia felt tears slip down her cheeks. She laughed softly, a mixture of relief, joy, and wonder. "I never thought honesty could feel like this," she said, wiping her tears. "I always thought it would be scary. But it's freeing, amazing, even." The room was quiet again, but it was a different kind of quiet this time. It wasn't filled with fear or uncertainty. It was full of possibility. Every glance, every small gesture, every soft word carried meaning. Mia felt her heart expand with each passing second. She wasn't just testing limits anymore, she was discovering them, embracing them, and realizing that growth could be beautiful, gentle, and shared. They spent the rest of the night talking, laughing, and reflecting. There were no confessions rushed, no declarations made. Just presence, just honesty, just the shared understanding that feelings could be complex and messy, but also real, meaningful, and transformative. They explored memories, shared hopes, and quietly acknowledged the unspoken connections that had always existed between them. By the time the city outside grew quiet, the storm of emotions inside Mia had calmed into something steady. She realized that bravery wasn't about knowing all the answers. It was about being willing to explore them. And tonight, surrounded by people who truly cared, she had done exactly that as the first light of morning began to creep through the blinds. Mia knew that nothing would ever be exactly the same. Her relationships with Ethan, Luca, and Ava had deepened in ways she hadn't anticipated. She had faced her fears, opened her heart, and found that vulnerability wasn't weakness, was power. And as she finally leaned back on her couch, hands still intertwined with the friend she trusted most, she smiled softly. The journey wasn't over. The emotions weren't resolved. But she had taken the first step. She had tested her limits, faced her heart, and discovered a new kind of strength, one that would guide her for years to come.